There is Supreme Court. The top court now has made it absolutely clear that the main condition which was being used by the State Bank of India to not reveal the actual donors in the electoral bonds, not revealing the actual receivers in the electoral bonds case, is an argument which falls flat on its face. Now the Supreme Court says the State Bank of India must furnish all details, and if it fails to do so by the end of a stipulated time period, then it can even consider initiating contempt proceedings. But how should this really be looked at? As far as the political ecosystem is concerned, is it really going to bring up transparency, which was initially the basic ask with reported psychologists and our dear friend Amitabh Tiwari joining this side. Well, warm welcome, Amitabh, to our special digital broadcast.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Let me first begin by asking you, Amitabh. The main condition was in this electoral bond scheme before the Supreme Court that the country citizens had the right to know which company purchased how many electoral bonds, and thereby which political party ended up being a beneficiary of the purchase that was made by a particular company. How do you read the judgment which has been delivered today by the Supreme Court in the context of that specific question?
See, essentially, the Supreme Court judgment, while provides for the listing of the names of corporates and individuals who have bought these electoral bonds, uh, and the amount of money redeemed by various political parties of those corporate bonds. So the amount of money redeemed is already in the public domain. ADR has done some work on that, and the data from 2018 to 23 is already in the public domain through the efforts of ADR. The amount is almost 13,000 crores, of which half has been received by the BJP and half by Congress and other regional parties. However, the main plea of the people who had gone to the Supreme Court was essentially trying to establish a link between the donors and the political parties. So let's say out of these 13,000 crores, an X amount of money has been bought by an an X amount of money has been bought by a corporate named A. This money has gone to which political party? So A has bought electoral bonds or paid donations to which political party? That link will not be established by the SBI through this judgment. So it's essentially the main objective or motive of the people who had gone to the Supreme Court will not be fulfilled by this judgment.
Can I just counter that argument? Because let me draw your attention to this tweet which has been put up by Mr. Sanjeev Gupta, who himself is a former Eurocrat. And look at what he's saying about that. He says the position being taken by the SBI chairman Dinesh Tara and its MD is reducing the search to the level of Anil Vasi, who was an infamous electoral officer at the Chandigarh mayoral elections. He says that he's spoken to former finance secretary and the IT head of State Bank of India, and this is what he's quoting. In the petition which was filed by the State Bank of India, the State Bank of India says that the Supreme Court has directed for making public donor information from the date of its interim order of 12th of April 2019 to the date of judgment, that is 15th of February 2024. The State Bank argues that in this time period, 22,217 electoral bonds were used for making donations to various political parties. Redeemed bonds were deposited to Mumbai's main branch by the authorized branches. Then at the end of each phase, it sealed envelopes. Coupled with the fact that two different information silos existed, this would mean that a total of 44,434 information sets now have to be decoded, compiled, and compared. Do you agree with this argument that 44,000 different sets have to be combined, have to be decoded? Do you agree with this argument that it takes time?
See, essentially what SBI was trying to say is that these two lists of, let's say, 22,000 donors have bought bonds worth 13,000 crore or 16,000 crore. This list is there. Now, out of the total 13,000 or 16,000 crore, how much is for which political party? This list is also there. It's already there actually of 13,000 crores. You can check on the internet. ADR report is already there.
Right.
Now, if we were to say, let's say all these 22,000 corporates are unique corporates. Now, which corporate bought an electoral bond which was redeemed by which political party? That linking will essentially take time is what was SBI's submission, that this 22,000 crore rupees, 22,000 donors have bought electoral bonds worth 13,000 or 16,000 crores. Now, if you ask me, out of these 22,000 donors, which donor bought an electoral bond which was redeemed by, let's say, BJP? Which donor bought an electoral bond which was redeemed by Congress? So, which donor funded which party or is funding which party? This is the link which SBI, at least by tomorrow, is not likely to establish, and they are just going to give the names of the donors and the political parties in aggregate how much they have received. This link will not be established.
How do you then respond to this statement which was made by the Chief Justice of India, who was also alluding to information which has been shared by the Election Commission of India? The Chief Justice says there is a lot of information which has been shared by the Election Commission of India, which is there with the Supreme Court in sealed envelopes, and that the top court now will bring these sealed envelopes, the content of these sealed envelopes, also into public domain. Do you foresee any information which we think is missing right now would actually come by the Election Commission?
That will have to be analyzed by the Election Commission or bodies like ADR. That this is the information which SBI has given. This is the list of donors. This is the amount of money which has gone to political parties. But which donor has given to which political party? That link will have to be established by political commentators or media or bodies like ADR through the information, and we'll have to see that information comes in which manner. Because somebody will have to establish that if they want to establish quid pro quo deals. Otherwise, it's like the total amount of this electoral bonds has been bought by these corporates, and we know the names of the corporates also. I mean, these will not be bought by individuals like you and me, correct? These will be big corporates who might have bought these bonds or trusts, and a sort of an allegation of crony capitalism is not new, and this is a practice which is prevalent across the world. So, crony capitalism is a charge which opposition parties levy on parties in power across the world.
We'll continue to make. Point taken. Let's then move on. To the most obvious question of the all. Why is this entire exercise happening? Because we wanted to bring in greater transparency. Because we wanted to reduce the dependence on cash. Amitabh, you study elections so closely, and I report on elections, so closely. Is the Indian polling process in any way less dependent on cash today, according to you?
So, see, this electoral bonds was an attempt to reduce the dependence on cash, but we are still very far from it. So, if you see, there's a think tank called CMS, Center of Media Studies, which said that 55,000 to 60,000 crores were spent in the Lok Sabha election by all political parties and candidates combined. Now, that amounts to roughly 100 crore per seat because we have 543 seats. So, 543 into 100 is roughly 55,000 crores. Now, in India, in an election cycle of 5 years, there is one Lok Sabha election and there is almost 30 Vidhan Sabha elections because we have 30 states around the world. Now, these 30 states have more than 4,000 Vidhan Sabhas. So, one can safely assume that the amount of money which has been spent in one Lok Sabha, because one Lok Sabha has 4,000 plus Vidhan Sabhas, correct? One Lok Sabha of 55,000, 60,000 crore is likely to be spent in the 30 Vidhan Sabhas when the elections are held, because the area of the Vidhan Sabhas total up to the area of the Lok Sabha, correct? 543 Lok Sabhas. So, in a span of 5 years, political parties and candidates are spending anywhere between 1,10,000 crores to 1,20,000 crores. That is CMS estimate plus just deriving a number from a CMS estimate of Vidhan Sabha numbers. Now, these electoral bond numbers are available in the market through ADR for 5 years, March 2018 to April 2023. It is exactly a period of 5 years. Now, in this 5 years, only 13,000 crore has been received through electoral bonds, roughly 12,979 or 12,779. Now, this 13,000 crores is just 10% of the 1,20,000 crores which we are.
So there's cash still in the system.
Cash is the king.
It would be fallacious for us to assume that because electoral bonds are there, therefore there is less dependence in cash. So cash is the
Cash is the king because 12,000 crore or 13,000 crores of electoral bonds versus 1,20,000 crores of amount of money which is spent by political parties and candidates. It's just 10%. But of course, it was an attempt. It might have been very less earlier. So it increased from, we don't have the numbers, to at least 10%. So what this does is that, let's say, companies which do not generate cash, like IT services companies or like services companies, let's say, they were able to participate in this electoral process through this electoral bond mechanism, is my assumption. But they will not be out of the system because they will need to fund the political parties either directly through a bank transfer or through cash. But corporates who continue to generate cash will be able to fund because they're anyways funding, or corporates and individuals, not only corporates, HNIs and individuals.
So in your opinion, Amitabh, in conclusion, if I was to ask you that irrespective of what happens, tomorrow in the Supreme Court, whatever is the information which is brought out by the Election Commission, whatever is shared by the State Bank of India, if I was to ask you to bring greater transparency in the whole funding exercise, if you're spending 1 lakh crore and only 30,000 crore is coming via electoral bonds, how do you bring greater transparency in the entire business of poll funding?
That is something which we have been debating for so many years now. So it's not an easy answer. State funding of elections is an answer to this. But since we are a multi-party system, we are not a two-party system. On each seat, there are independents and smaller parties also which contest. So on each seat, we have 14 to 15 candidates. So a state funding of election could have been possible when you have just 2 candidates or 3 candidates per seat. But the number here is huge. So state funding is one option. I really don't think of how to reduce the dependence on cash unless the cash generation in the economy itself reduces.
But if I was to ask you, Amitabh, that in your understanding of the Indian political ecosystem, which would be that one state which would actually be spending the highest amount of cash when it comes to elections?
You see, when I think in terms of amount of money spent per Vidhan Sabha or Lok Sabha and in cash, the southern states far outnumber the northern states. In southern India, the amount spent by candidates is humongous on a Vidhan Sabha or a Lok Sabha election.
Okay. All right, Amitabh, great pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, sir. Thank you.